quick question. What do all of these players have in common? Tens, Nats, Zeke, Sugetsu, Leo, Alphayear, Demon One, Zekken, and Meteor. They all won unofficial MVPs, but there was no real award to give them. There have even been tournaments where it was kind of undecided, like Masters Reykjavik, where people couldn't decide between Marved and Ye, or Champions 2022, where Loud won the event, but Ye was the best player at the event, and the community argued between giving the MVP award to Ye, aspas, or less. Well, that's all changing. Leo Faria announced that this is going to be the first Masters or Champions event to announce an official MVP. So let's take a listen to what he said.
But we definitely want to celebrate players and their achievements. So we're going to test some things out. I don't think we have announced this yet, so this is going to be first-hand information. We're going to have an MVP award at the end of Champions Grand Finals. We're doing that for the first time to, again, celebrate not only the winning team, but the players who were a highlight.
There are 4 teams left, and in my opinion, there are 6 main candidates. People could surprise us and pop off in the future, but I think there's 6 frontrunners right now, and I want to take a look at the arguments for them. The first person that I want to take a look at is rien. rien is an incredible player by default. I mean, he's just been spectacular all year. Wyatt likes to talk about him being the perfect player made in a lab. But this tournament, he stepped up further than even before. He's trading perfectly. He's playing every situation super intelligently. But if you look at the stats, he's also getting 23% of Heretics kills, the highest by a large margin. The next player's at like 20%. And he's the only non-duelist player of the 4 teams remaining to be doing that, where they're the top fragger for their teams. It's really unusual. And that's while averaging 220 ACS, again while playing Sova, Viper, Gecko. This is way overperforming and getting higher impact than you would expect from his role, right? And that outsized impact, it can really make a difference. He's winning 56% of his duels, which is extremely solid. Like I said, trading out a lot of those. And he's dropping nearly 150 ADR, which is just outrageous for an initiator player. I think, though, that people tend not to give these awards to initiators. They tend to be quite duelist biased with these kind of things. And I think it would take Heretics straight up winning the whole tournament, whilst Miniboo continues having a performance where it's more about him making space than getting kills in order for Rien's to win. So if we're going to look at duelists that have a great chance of winning, you only have to look at the opponents of Heretics in the lower bracket, Sentinels. And if Sen go on a run to the grand finals, hell, even if they don't win it, I think Zekken is going to be looking solid for this award. He is, as I mentioned before, the unofficial MVP of Masters Madrid, where he put on a god-tier performance, and I think he's playing better right now. He is hard carrying Sentinels in this tournament with his fragging. 25% of Sentinels' kills, a quarter of them, put that on the back of Zekken. And in terms of first kills, 42% of Sentinel's first kills are coming from this young fragger. That's absolutely outrageous. He's got an over 60% win rate when he entries on the attack side. So you put him in a first duel on the attack side, he's winning that over 60% of the time for Sentinels. It's huge. His impact cannot be overstated. And this is all coming with generally really high fragging too. He gets that first kill, he stays alive in the round, and he does more for you. He has 0.89 KPR, which is true star duelist numbers, 3rd highest of any player at Champions, and the highest left in the tournament, beating out Aspas. And this is the same for his ADR. Obviously, if you're killing a lot of people, you're going to be doing a lot of damage. He's the 3rd highest and the top left in the tournament as well there, at 161 ADR. I really think that Zekken's the kind of player that even if Sentinels do go on a run through the lower bracket but don't actually win the entire thing, he's actually somebody that you could still point at as having the most impact in the server, even if his team ends up losing. Something that, if you remember back to Shanghai, we were talking about for Woot. Now, Woot was putting up even more ridiculous numbers, but hey, he fell off a little bit in the finals. Anything is still possible. If we're going to start talking about teams in the upper bracket, though, the teams that are actually more likely to win the tournament, and therefore more likely for a player to hoist that MVP, who are we looking at from EDG? This one is actually the most open, in my opinion, because there are 3 candidates that you could select from China's team that just broke the glass ceiling for the region. If EDG do win against Leviathan, their team's in a great spot to win the tournament. And MVPs are almost always selected from the winning team, even if that shouldn't exactly be how it's done. And as I said, they're normally duelist biased, so let's take a look at Kungkong first. Every single stat that targets output, production, fragging, that is Kungkong's domain. He leads the team in these metrics, as you would expect from a duelist put in these kind of positions, with over 150 ADR. So slightly better fragging than Rien's, slightly lower fragging than Zekken, but still very solid. And his biggest claim for the MVP trophy so far is that he is absolutely ripping first kills. His success rate isn't as high as somebody like Zekken or another player we'll talk about later, but he's number one in the tournament in terms of just literally getting those first kills per round. So for the amount of rounds that all of these players have played, Kungkong is there taking more duels and winning a lot of them. And that's because he's doing more rifling, in my opinion. Without having to be opping in as many rounds, he's got the rifle in his hands, he's incredibly talented at both, and he's getting super involved in entrying with the rifle. 56% of his entries are on the attack side rather than the defense side. Now, the guy used to op on the attack side too, so it probably wouldn't have been too different. But I think it's startling how he's changed his personality as a player and still having so much success. He's such a hard worker, as well as being talented. He is only top 11 in the tournament out of all players for ACS, ADR, KPR, which of course goes up slightly when you consider like the four remaining teams, but he's not dominating the tournament like he was at Masters Tokyo. But that's a good thing because it means that other candidates are still stepping up from EDG. And one of them that I want to move on to now is Smoggy. And I think that this would be the people's pick if you ask them about an MVP from EDG. Because he went nuts, bonkers, bazooka bonkers against Foot and PaperX. He was plus 21 with 176 ADR against Foot, crushed the Turkish players, and then against PaperX, those rivals of his, he went plus 21, almost the same, with 168 ADR. And if you only look at maps where he's been playing super solidly for EDG, like Lotus or Bind, then this is your guy. But that doesn't track to everything that he's been doing recently. Especially on the Clove, though, when it comes to Lotus, he's been pounding. Like I said, his tournament averages, they're not quite as impressive. I think he would have to return to that early tournament form, probably with Bind and Lotus being picked a lot in the matches that they still have left to play, which is certainly a possibility against teams like Leviathan, who like playing on those maps. But he would need Bind and Lotus in map pools, and he would need to continue farming on the Brim and the Clove in order to have a chance at lifting that MVP trophy. My pick, though, for EDG, which is a little further out there, and I haven't seen too much support for this in the public discourse yet, is Chishu. Chishu has been phenomenal. I went back and watched these EDG games because I wanted to get more of a feel on what their current style is and why they've done so much better. It's easy to focus on the main pack and how Kungkong's entering and that kind of stuff, but Chishu does so much for this team in their common 4-1 defaults. You see him in spots where he should go down and a lot of other people would back off and try to just go 1-for-1, and he stands his ground and delivers ridiculously. He's also super good at being able to inform them to make intelligent decisions. He gets info for them on the opposite side of the map without giving up his life. And if you want to talk about when he's pressured, and that's often at the beginning of rounds, he's farming. Early round success is what Chishu is doing the best here at Champ Seoul. He has a 73% success rate on entrying. Remember, I was talking about Zekken earlier on as being amazing with 61%. Chishu, admittedly, the numbers are lower because he's not in that duelist position, but a 73% win rate for first duels on attack. And then when he's pressured on the defense side, he's still got a 66% win rate when anchoring. That's a tournament he's having with these opening duels. Now, some of these first kills are just straight up entering on attack.
Nade up and over. This is PaperX opting into the fight.
Some of them are controlling the lurks by removing the other person's control of the timing and forcing the fight on your terms.
DG were making it look like it was only nobody playing A when suddenly there's 4 players over in that side of the map.
Both teams trying to obfuscate their intent here. And now Swarm dropped down. Hot feet there for Leaf.
Some of them are just him anchoring positions really well and being confident in his aim.
And decided to go A.
Yeah, full control over towards A, but the question is, can they clear Chishu? Cloudburst intelligent way to try and get your way and slip past into the side as well. Chishu still set up, still lands 2!
And then interestingly, when they split push, which EDG does a lot of, you see Kungkong entering on one side of the map, often with like Simon with him, and then Chishu entering on the other side of the map with, you know, sometimes a paranoia being thrown for him, sometimes nobody throwing utility for him. So Chishu actually does end up being the entry in some of their rounds where they run these split pushes.
And surely they don't overstep themselves. They're going for another fight as well. Contact plays on contact plays.
A massive fight in A. EDG are trying to make it feel like they're in mid and bait out this re-clear from Sen.
And they're just holding for the peak. What util do they even have as well? Contact cord as well. Full line is late.
And I think another really important part of why Chishu's doing so well is that when he's put in a tough position, he chooses to fight. Watch him swing forwards here when a breach ult's coming towards him and delete these 2 players inside of Garage.
Online from this one. Everybody grouped up from EDG, setting themselves up to try and play for the retake, but it's preemptive. Sen using this to try and strike. Chishu's there.
It's just absolutely bonkers what he's been putting together in this tournament so far. Super, super worthy candidate to have your eye on if he keeps performing like this and EDG do well, make it to that grand final. But of course, the final boss of Valorant has yet to emerge in this video. And of course, I'm talking about Aspas. He is still the leading candidate to lift an MVP trophy and a great candidate to lift a potential second Champions trophy too. He's the front runner for MVP and his team's in a great spot to win the tournament. That's one of the reasons. If they beat EDG, they should have a huge map pool advantage over their opponent from the lower bracket because they play a lot of maps that other people don't want to, like Icebox, Ascent. His consistency is unbelievable. I know that this is an award that's based on this tournament right here and now, and it tends to be recency biased, so it's actually based more on the final few games. But his consistency in every tournament he plays is through the roof. He hasn't been the second-rated player in any tournament he's played so far. I mean, I guess outside of stuff like Master Shanghai, where his team shit the bed. If he had been playing... Sorry, let me amend that. If his team had been playing at a higher level throughout the year, we might be talking about Aspas as the best player in the world for 2024. I'm not sure you can make that discussion, though, because his team didn't put him in positions to be able to take on the best at Madrid, at Shanghai. So I'm not sure personally that I can make that argument. But I think if he had been in those spots, he would have delivered. He's got the highest rating of any player. Like I said, he does that in almost any tournament. And this is because he frags super hard without dying early in rounds or farming ecos. He's winning 57% of his duels right now, which is top in the tournament. He's got 78% cast as a duelist player. When you're talking about duelists who go in and get first deaths fairly often because they try to take that first fight, to only have your team be without you and be valueless 22% of the time is actually ridiculously good. And this is also the highest in the tournament. This is because he has a safer playstyle than other duelists like Zekken, Kungkong, or Miniboo. He doesn't throw his life in selflessly to prioritize making space for his team. He does occasionally do those hard entry plays, but he takes really good timings with a lot of utility support. And I think, generally speaking, he just likes to play for mid-round and late-round impact. And how could you doubt the guy? He's so good at finding those impact kills in the mid-round. And because he doesn't throw himself in, yes, he does have less first duels than the others. But his success rate is phenomenal. He has a 62% first duel win rate. 64% on entry. Even better than Zekken, though taking less. And a 60% success rate when anchoring, even though he sometimes picks up the AWP or he's sometimes playing in positions where teams will literally avoid him because it's Aspas, run the other way. Unreal. So if you forced me to pick somebody at the moment, I would go for Aspas. I think he is going to be the player that lifts Valorant's first Champions MVP trophy, accolade, title, whatever you want to call it, and if they even have a trophy or I don't know, a comedically large check for the guy. And the reason is because Aspas is super consistent. I trust in him to be able to perform, and I think Leviathan are going to win this tournament with how they've been playing. But in my opinion, it's open to any of those 6 candidates depending on how their teams perform, and EDG is the most interesting. Could other people come out as dark horses in the race? Other people that we've seen perform incredibly well in the past, people like Woot, people like Miniboo, people like Tens. Yes, they could. But I'm looking at these 6 candidates and aspas in particular. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Let me know if you think I've missed anybody out or have missed out a good reason why somebody else should be included. I think it's always a great topic for discussion.